This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. Anna is back today. And Anna was on a little, I don't know at this point which one's going to air first, but we've talked about your motherhood journey, and you were my hairstylist, and we've known each other for years now at this point. And I thought it would be really cool for you to come on and talk about just in real time what it's like to be assertive in the workplace and how challenging that is for everyone, but I think mostly women. And I just thought it would be a really cool conversation to share. So give me some backstory we obviously have had this conversation in your chair before, but give me some backstory so everyone can catch up with us on how that shows up for you, like working on being assertive and how to handle conflict in the workplace.
Yeah. Well, hi. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you for being back.
Yeah, I think you and I have talked about this behind the chair for sure, because for me, naturally, I would not say my natural personality is to be assertive.
Yeah.
So I am still in the process of learning what that looks like as a stylist and behind the chair, and now as a boss because I have an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had a few, thankfully, to kind of learn on and get better as time goes on. But yeah, I would say that's probably one of my biggest challenges as a stylist in general, just being more assertive, and being a better communicator in the workplace. Yeah. Yeah. So
In
I'm hoping you'll give
everything,
me some
right?
good tips today.
Well, so I feel, first of all, I want to say, like, this is such a common thing for women, whether it's in your relationship or in the workplace or in your family. Like, we, especially our generation, and I kind of feel like it's still happening, it's definitely getting better, but women are generally raised to be people pleasers, to read the room and like acclimate to it, make sure everyone's happy and be the hostess or whatever, and just like make sure everyone's happy. Everything is good and everything's flowing. And I say this a lot, like you can't not be a people pleaser to some degree.
Right.
Like, it is a way to function in the world that makes it a little bit easier to move through. It's manners, it's politeness. Like, those are all things that in my mind can be categorized under people pleasing, but it's courtesy and it's politeness. And so it's not always a detrimental thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think when it comes up in the workplace, it's like, I want to be friends with this person.
Right.
I want them to like me. And I don't want to have to fuss at them. I don't want to have to put them in their place or have a hard conversation. But again, like, this doesn't just apply to the workplace. Like, this is in, people's partnerships, their marriages, their families, other moms. Like, it can go into anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really relatable topic, which is why I wanted to talk about it. And I see it too. In my own life, I'm interested for you. Like, is there like a badass female boss that you have seen in your life at some point or another that you aspire to be like, in that they handle confrontation really well? They can give you direction. Like, do you have that person that you immediately think of?
Yeah. And I think I have several, like, as you're saying that, several kind of come through my mind. I've had just a lot of strong females that I've worked with and worked under who, honestly, I have taken bits and pieces of things that they do that I like how they communicate, or how, they talk to their assistants or their clients, or, so there's bits and pieces of, but all very strong female, communicators. And I would probably describe all of them as being assertive. And I think that's been a challenge, because when I look at myself, and even watching myself as a stylist or like communicating with my assistants, I have never been that personality. So I've been very thankful to be able to have these women to look after. And, but that's been a trickier thing for me for sure. I think that the busier that you get as a stylist, the more naturally you become assertive, because you realize in order for your day to function and for your clients to have the best possible service and outcome, you realize that you have to be assertive. But it comes more naturally when your time is just taken up, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It does. It's like, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
Like you're pushed to the point, like your threshold is met where it's like, this has to happen,
Right.
or I'm going to pay the price. So, and this is what you're here for. Right. And so, but I think in a lot of circumstances, some people don't get pushed to that point early enough.
Yeah.
And they don't get a chance to use their voice. I want to back up for a second though. And the women that you're talking about who are assertive, do you think that they would classify themselves as assertive?
I think yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I think there's one specific one that comes to mind that I think she would definitely classify herself as assertive. And she has always been just that very strong, clear communicator.
Mm-hmm.
She'll even say, I'm not, which is funny because we've become such good friends, but she doesn't take on that role that I do as far as like trying to be friendly or make friends.
Okay.
But she does just naturally because but as far as like just being a stylist, that's not her role, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think she's always been like that?
I don't know.
And the reason I'm asking you this is I feel like, and I use this analogy too, like in a different circumstance, but it's like you see a woman walk into a room and she just oozes confidence and power, and you're like, I want to be her.
Yeah.
Right. But then if you were to actually speak to her, she probably has a million insecurities and is not as confident as she comes off as, or she had to fake it to get to that point of, and there were like really hard challenges that came up, like whether it was feeling isolated because you had to be the boss and assertive. So there wasn't a lot of love always there type of thing.
Yeah.
The reason I highlight that is it's a muscle. Like it's something you have to work out and you have to flex and you have to keep putting in the work and keep showing up. You don't just wake up one day and you're assertive.
Right.
You don't just come to work and you're like, okay, I'm a boss bitch. And everyone is going to love me and hate me and fear me all at the same time.
Yeah.
It doesn't, in my experience, it doesn't happen like that overnight. Like it is an art form.
For sure. And I think there's different types of being assertive.
Yeah.
There's
100%.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like the people who have the beautiful balance, which is what you said about this woman in particular, is that people are still friends with her and still really like her, but they respect her.
Right. Yes.
And that's a really hard line to toe.
Hard one. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So is she someone that you report to, so to speak?
Well, and of course there's several different ones that were popping through my head. A few of them, yes.
Okay. Or have had reported.
Yes.
To? Okay.
Yeah. The specific one that I was talking about a second ago, actually, no, she's just a fellow coworker. And I think she's one that in my head, when I think of an assertive stylist, I think of her, and I've been fortunate to work alongside her. So I'm able to kind of take some of the things that she does and replicate them. And I think it's like you said, it is a muscle that you practice and you get better at as you go.
Do you copy some of her stuff?
I think I take spins of things from people for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think she's helped me in a lot of ways to be more organizational. I think that she helps with just like, because I think assertiveness in the workplace comes a lot with your conversations and how you speak with your clients or your, and so sometimes because we work so close together, it helps me to hear other conversations happening, and how to better kind of take that into my own, for sure.
I think that, most people are the type of people who want like a tutorial.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean like, I learned how to curl my hair on YouTube with tutorials. Like, I want someone to show me exactly how to do something and then
Right.
let me make my own spin on that, which is what I heard you say.
Yeah.
And I think that that is a great way of looking at it, even if it's relationships or, whatever context you're hearing this conversation and relating to it in.
Yeah.
Find someone in your life that you're like, her or
Yeah.
them. I want to be that. Like, I want to aspire to that, because then it's like you have a goal,
Yeah.
but you also have like someone to pull tips and tricks from, or
For
like
sure.
mannerisms. And the reason I asked if you reported to one of these women is because I also think it's really helpful to be on the receiving end of the assertiveness, to hear how it, like, to be the consumer of it, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, to see what that, and this was a conversation I was having yesterday about like the customer experience.
Yeah.
Being the consumer side, where you get to receive all of it. And obviously you're not a consumer, but hopefully people understand what I mean by that. You get to see on the other side how it comes across, because you're not parallel with her. You are directly in front of her, hearing the feedback.
Yeah.
And you get to emotionally decide like how you receive it.
Yes.
Like, in the delivery. And that's also so personal, right? Like, I've said this before, and I say this a lot. Like, I had a really defining moment in my own life, and it really took self-awareness, but also a lot of self-love for myself, because I'd heard people in my life say that I was intimidating.
Yeah.
And that felt like an insult, not a compliment.
Yeah.
And I don't know necessarily which way they meant it in any way that I heard it, but it didn't matter. Like, anytime I heard it, it was an insult. Right. Yeah. And I had this shift of, okay, how am I going to look at this? Like, is this a bad thing? It's fine. They can't hear it. Okay. Am I going to hear, side note, Anna's phone is beeping, and she's like she's like, I'm so sorry.
I know. I'm like, do I need to turn it
But
off?
the mics are good. You're not going to be able to hear it. Life happens.
Yeah.
Right? Things happen. But I remember having this moment where it was, and I heard someone else say it, right? It wasn't like I had this epiphany, because it's never like that. It's like, you need to be inspired and hear someone else say it. But I heard someone say, to some degree, like, am I intimidating or are you intimidated? Because one is on me and the other is on you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I can decide the way I want to walk into a room, but I have no control on how you receive it.
Yes.
Nor is it my responsibility or any of my business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I can't take responsibility for that, because then I dim my light. And that's the people pleaser thing. It's like walking into a room, reading the room, and then changing yourself to fit.
Yes, for
which
sure.
we have all been taught to do. And there is this moment that hopefully all of us get to at some point, where it's, I don't give a damn who's in the room.
Yeah.
I'm walking into it the same way regardless.
Right.
And that's a huge moment for a woman to get to. And I hope to God that everyone listening and everyone gets to that place. But I feel like it's the same thing with being assertive. It's like being so aware of who you are and what your intentions and message truly are, and releasing the responsibility on how it's received by the other person. Because it's not, you can't control that. You can only control what you say and how you say it. And you're going to have someone that receives it badly, poorly.
For sure.
Fault.
I also wonder why we sometimes hear something like that and take it in the negative way. Because, which, you could hear intimidating and think like, okay, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? But our brain always hops first to, that's the most negative
so
thing.
Much easier.
Yeah. And it's a struggle to constantly go to that place of like, well, they meant that in a bad way. But I think that's also the people pleasing mentality of being an overthinker. And
I also think it's just being a woman in general.
Yeah.
And I'll bring this back to like the hype squad, and the idea behind it is, a friend of mine and I were talking, and we were coming back to each other and celebrating wins and acknowledging to each other, there's no one else in my life I would say this to.
Yeah.
There's no one else in my life that I think would be truly happy without feeling some sort of tension on, oh my God, you're bragging.
Right.
Oh my God, you're so full of yourself. And in that, actualization of what was happening in that moment, it was like, we should all be more full of ourselves. We should
Yeah.
all brag about the things that we're good at more. Why the hell not?
Right.
Like, and I also had, not epiphany, but just like clarity on the fact that the more I was around women who were acknowledging the things they were good at and proud and not putting any sort of caveat around it, like, I think I'm good at this. No, I am good
Yeah.
at this, right?
Yeah.
Like things like that. I gave myself permission to do it for myself, but I
Yeah.
had to hear other people do it first.
Yeah.
And that was like the thought process behind this Hype Squad podcast is I wanted women to come on and talk about the things they're good at and also the things that, you know, they're struggling with and
Yeah.
acknowledging that it's normal and it's okay, but they're still proud of that like just being proud,
Relatable. Yeah.
relatable
for
and
sure.
real. And I think because I think that's so
Yeah.
common.
Yes.
It's real for all of us.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and the assertiveness, like you were saying earlier, is like, it's so important in so many different. I think one thing for me that I realized is like by not being assertive and by kind of tiptoeing or trying to be friends, which is a good thing. I think being friends is a good thing, but trying to be almost not assertive, I was unclear and confusing. And I think that that's something that I take away from just like conversations with people who work for me or with me of like, okay, maybe assertive is just being clear in your communication.
100%, which is not assertive. I feel like when people hear the word assertive, they think negative.
Yeah.
They and maybe not always negative, but it's never like, oh, she's really assertive.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Like the word
right?
intimidating.
Yeah.
I think your
exactly.
brain went to negative.
It
and
has
that's the
like
same
this
thing.
this insinuation of some sort of negative aspect, but I do feel like, you know, and maybe it's a vocabulary
Yeah.
thing. Like I'm very concise.
Yeah.
Or I give a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Or you'll have no questions about what I want type of thing. You know, and so many things come out, like it's the tone that you use, the setting in which you're speaking, how you start and finish the conversation. So I want to dive into a second. I want to do like a real life example of something, because I know we've done this in the chair before, talking outside of this moment. Give me an example of something you struggle with pretty specifically with your assistant or any of your assistants that you've had. What's like a common denominator of a conversation that's hard for you to have with them?
I mean, even just in the day to day, like assistants are kind of in charge of meeting and greeting our guests, mixing our color, getting them to get a smock on, shampooing, but even the other things like helping take, you know, laundry in the salon. And so there's multiple different assistants that are there. And if our assistant is not keeping the balance of the laundry and the dishes, then things will get backed up and then it falls on the other assistants. Sometimes I don't even like to have to say, hey, can you keep up with doing the dishes today? Because I think it sounds mean.
Yeah.
So that's just a small example of like some things like that. I think that I struggle with just asking assistants to do their job sometimes, even though they wouldn't take it wrong. But in my head, I sound like I'm being mean.
So asking to do the dishes, you said, I think
that's
sounds
probably
mean.
A really poor example, but
no, I think it's a real example.
Yeah.
I don't think it's poor. I think it's real.
Yeah.
Because I heard and felt everything you said, and I could relate it to something that I've struggled with myself. So let me dig into this a little bit. So when you say it sounds mean to ask them or tell them to do the dishes, let me clarify. Are you asking them or are you telling them?
Well, I should probably tell.
No, but I'm asking like how it comes off naturally.
Naturally, it would be to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're asking them to do the dishes and you feel like that's mean.
Yeah.
So can we dig into that a little bit more? Like why does that feel mean?
Yeah.
You're not asking them to do a favor.
Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
This is the part that I need to come to you.
Okay. Look, this is what we're doing. We're working through it. I love it. Okay. So let me dig in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Is there a job description that they have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does it clearly define the monotonous things like the dishes and the towels and the color mixing and the greeting? Does it go through all of that in detail?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do they have a daily task list?
They do.
What's on it?
Basically kind of some of the things that I mentioned before, on top of maintaining, just keeping everything flowing with the back room, the dishes, the laundry.
Does it say dishes and laundry?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I need to go look at it.
Do you give your own job description, or is it a template
but I
that
need
you
to.
guys?
That's more a template for the salon.
So I think for me, hearing you and also feeling like trying to put myself in the place of your assistant, and also thinking about my own assistant and what that has been like for her, is a really clearly defined job description is imperative.
Yeah.
And I think because that needs no introduction or any questions or any everyday powwow. This is your job. This is what you know you're supposed to do. So that would be a great place to start, in my opinion, is just starting there. Like, what's on the list, and can I make it more specific? Can I make a daily checklist of tasks? So every day you come in, this is the first things that you do, like making it very like easy for a third grader type of thing.
And I need to make sure I say that we have one. There's no telling where it is right now. Or
that's a great place to start. But then it's not so much that you have to micromanage.
Right.
It's that they come in every day and they know that this is how their day starts. Right.
Yeah.
They know they can build their own routine. They can come in, they can have their coffee, or they can work in their girl chat while they're doing their dishes. But they kind of get to choose in what cadence maybe they do it.
Yeah.
But it still has to be done.
Yeah. And I think that things like that, more so I've probably struggled with a while back. Whereas now, kind of like I was saying earlier, my day is so filled up and so busy that in order to keep things functioning, they have to be doing the things. So it kind of alleviates me from having to be micromanaging or having to speak as much on those things, because my day just runs more full.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that part, because it helps with my personality.
Yeah. It keeps you very busy, and you're not having, like, even the hard conversations are probably in passing a lot of times. So it's not stressful to like have a sit down. But that leads me to my next question. How often do you give your assistants reviews?
We haven't really been doing that. And that is probably a very important.
I struggle with that myself. I do, because I'm sharing this because I think that you'll probably relate to this.
Yeah.
You get so comfortable in the relationship dynamic with your assistant, because it's the same thing for me. It's like, okay, well, everything's going great, so why would I sit down and have a review?
Right.
And with my first business, where I had multiple employees who were all men, by the way, because I think that's a big difference that needs to be highlighted, is women working for and with women is more difficult. There's more personality and conflict that can come. And so I have very different experiences with my two businesses.
Yeah.
But anyway, my assistant now would tell you she likes a review. She wants to have a sit down about what are the things she could improve. How is she doing? And I fall short on that a lot. And I'm giving you this example because I want you to know, even though I'm going to share this idea with you, it does not mean I'm great at it.
But it may be that some people thrive with that kind of.
Well, but the reason I'm saying that is because I should have and need to put in a quarterly review and just put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
And so it's rolling every quarter, and I don't have to think about it or put it, it's just already there.
Yeah.
And so it's like clockwork.
Yes.
Because I do think, and if Rachel were here right now to tell you, she would say, yeah, I would love to have a review.
Yeah.
I wish we would have had, we had this one, it was months ago, and I want another one.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to ask your assistants the same thing, they would want a review.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's how people work. They want to know, first of all, how they're doing. They want to hear they're doing a good job if they are.
Yeah.
But they also want to know, where can I improve? Because if I'm not doing a good job, I want to know so I can do better.
Yes, I totally agree.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think even with assistants, I think, higher level jobs
Yeah.
get reviews without a lot of question
Yeah.
for most situations. But I do feel like the assistant role is overlooked because they're busy.
Right.
And it's hard to make time to sit down and talk about it because they're running around doing all of the little odd and end
Yep.
things. But
You
it's
have to make
still a
the time
position
for
that
it.
needs to have its own moment to be recognized and reviewed.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, did y'all do reviews with the men? Did they like that?
Yeah, they were very intense.
Yeah.
So what we would do, so I had a general manager, and then I had like etching technicians underneath him. And so what would happen is that he would give them paper reviews because I just preferred paper. And you would review each other. You would review the organization as a whole, the workflow. You would review your GM. There were a whole list of things, and I can even give you a template if you're interested. And you can take from it what you will.
Yeah.
But then once they did the paper version, it was all anonymous. So it's different with an assistant because it's not anonymous, right?
Because I like what you said about interview, or they reviewed you too.
Yeah.
I think that can be helpful.
100%.
Yeah.
Because you need to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because you may think that you're coming across one way and you have no idea. I think that is a crucial thing for every relationship in your life, your partnership, your friendships. And it's difficult for a lot of people, but it's like, how am I doing?
Yeah.
How can I do better? Like,
yes.
Yeah. I think I'm doing a great job, but do you agree?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
What
do
you
you
don't
see that
agree, I don't need to keep going down this hill. Right.
Yeah.
So we would do that, but then I would meet with each person individually. And I'm thinking now it was anonymous to the GM. It was not anonymous to me.
Okay.
So let me back up from that. So our GM did not know whose was what, because it would come directly to me. It wouldn't go to him.
Okay.
And that was important because they were reviewing him specifically. They didn't report to me. They reported to him.
Okay.
Now I did my own review process with him.
Yeah.
For myself and my business partner,
Yeah.
but they didn't directly report to me. So it wasn't important for them to review me separately. So I was like the outside man. And so I would bring everyone in and we would go over everything, but I would also tell them ahead of time, you have to bring up things to me, prepare yourself, the things you want to share, the things that concern you that you want to talk about, because this is going to be your moment to shine, to share all of those things. So kind of giving them the opportunity to do their own homework, because here's the thing, nobody's going to write that shit down.
Yeah.
They're going to say it when they feel safe and that no one can hear them, but they're never going to write down their issues or their complaints.
Yeah.
At least in my experience.
Yeah.
Right. And even if they do write it down, they're giving you like the very polite Cliff Notes version of it. There's a lot more boiling up inside.
Yes.
So I would give them ample amount of time to share all the things that concern them or bothered them or made them happy, places they could see improvement. Like, I think this would work really well. And you would get, in my experience with it, I would have a couple of outliers who was like, yeah, everything's great. Like, doing a great job. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I'm good. But then I would also have the other ones who were great communicators who would give me great insight to the things that were happening that I was not aware of.
Yeah.
Right. Because that was the hierarchy, right? There were the technicians, there was the GM. So every information I got was from the GM.
Yeah.
I wasn't speaking to the technicians. So it was a great way of like seeing what was actually happening behind the scenes. And it's not the same thing with an assistant, which again, I say, that's so much easier to drop the ball.
Yeah.
Because you just feel like, because you are seeing and around each other every day, we assume if they have a problem, they'll tell me.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's so important to make the time to just, like you said, allot it on the calendar, because it's not going to happen if we do it during the day at work.
But they're also not going to tell you, right? They're not going to tell you in passing. Like, and I think this is another thing to remind all of us about is we forget that communication in any circumstances two-way. If we're feeling discomfort or challenge, almost guarantee the person on the other side is feeling it too.
Yeah.
but we are so isolated in our own ego and what we think we're feeling, and we're never even considering how it feels to them.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, they'll tell me if they're having a problem or if, they're bothered by something. They won't.
Right. Not unless you
Not,
ask. Yeah.
but again, same thing in a relationship. Until there is a safe moment to sit and speak about stuff, no one's going to say hard shit in passing.
Yeah.
No one's going to stay over making breakfast in the morning or packing lunches or sitting over dinner. Oh, really bothers me that you do this.
Yeah.
No one's going to do that, which is why a lot of people do coaching or therapy, like in a relationship. And I say all the time, like there should be, have you ever seen the show Billions?
No.
So there's this character called Wendy, and she's basically the therapist of the business. And I always say every business should have a Wendy.
Yeah.
Who can bring two people into the room and like, okay, go.
Yes.
And then mediate the conflict, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so difficult. And it's the same thing with a relationship. You can go to like a marriage counselor or whatever it may be. But like everyone struggles with communication.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the problem with the assertiveness.
Right.
It's not, I don't know how to be assertive. Sure you do, depending on who your audience is, right?
Yeah.
Sure you do. Like you give an order to a server and you tell someone how to do this, or you tell your kids how to do things.
Right.
You know how to be assertive, but it's only in dynamics where the power is like clearly defined.
Yeah.
And you're not worried about what they think of you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the communication aspect. And so I had this come up with a client last week, actually. It was a big breakthrough session where she was having trouble communicating with her partner. And she is a boss. Like she's a manager at the business that she works in. And I said, do you have problems communicating with your staff in a business meeting?
Yeah.
She said, no, I'm great at that. I'm like, okay, let's bring that energy home with us. Like, why are we not able to bring it? But that's so relatable, right? Like I can do it here. It's like putting everything in a box.
Yes.
I'm not the same Charli sitting right here that I am when I am sitting at the dinner table with my family, or that I am when I am, at a PTO meeting or whatever, right? Like that's relatable.
Yeah.
Because we're people pleasing, we're reading the room, we're trying to assimilate into whoever is in the room. And so with this particular client, and this might be helpful for you, and we may have already talked about this, I told her to create an alter ego.
That's right.
So her work alter ego, I think we named her like Nikki, which is funny because I have a sister named Nikki. But we named her, we'll just say Nikki. I think it was Nikki. And I said, okay, let's embody everything that there is about Nikki, like how Nikki walks into the room, how Nikki sits down and prepares for a meeting. That's another big aspect. Like if you're going to have a big communication, you need to be prepared for it. You need to have like your idea of what's going to be discussed. When you get out of the car at home, don't leave Nikki in the car. Bring Nikki inside with you, right? Because it goes back to the fake it till you make it, which a lot of people don't like that terminology or that phrase or whatever, but I love it.
Yeah.
Because it's like eventually you can't tell the difference.
Yeah. I think it can be helpful in situations like that where you're like, and when you kind of dig into the root cause of why is it that I'm scared to ask a simple question, like then you start to realize, okay, it's not that big of a deal. You just have to have a minute to kind of run it back in your head of, why am I making this a big issue?
Do you have a scenario in your life that you feel assertive and good at being assertive in any relationship in your life? Dun, dun, dun. Don't answer, but I want you to think about that and think about like any situations that you do feel comfortable being assertive. Where are you? What's the power dynamic?
Yeah.
Maybe it's with your kids, or maybe it's with your husband, or a baby's, like, I don't know. Like there's more than likely there's some place in your life you can pull inspiration from.
Yeah. I think too, I'm also probably making myself sound like I think I've learned to use my personality as being kind of a people pleaser and just want to be friends with people. And I've learned to be assertive in a different kind of way. But there's definitely areas that I need to be a little more tough and rough on, but I think that I'm getting I'm getting better at it.
I'm glad that you said that, because I think that when you first told me you were struggling being assertive, and you didn't articulate it like that, but however you said it,
Yeah.
I did not agree with you.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's so interesting, because I would not have seen it that way. Right. And I think that's a good reminder too,
Well, I appreciate that.
well, but I think it's a lot of it's in our head.
Yeah.
A lot of the time is like, we could be better. I could have said that better, whatever. And again, reviewing and getting feedback from them, you may decide, oh, I'm pretty good at this. I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, and it may quiet that voice in your head a little bit. And I do want to ask too, just because I'm familiar with how the salon works and the dynamics and stuff. Do you think that any part of it plays a part that you are talking to your assistants in front of clients?
It could be that. And I think also, yes, I mean, I think and I think it's easier sometimes to talk to assistants in front of clients. But I think the biggest thing is just because you work with so many strong women, it's more of a comparison issue than it is an assertive issue. I think that I've thought my whole career, I need to be assertive in the ways that they are. And hasn't been until recently that I realized, no, I can be assertive, but I can still be me. And so it's a little bit of just like learning,
Anna, did we just have a breakthrough?
Did we have a moment?
I think that that's a great,
I feel like I'm getting touched right now, and I love it.
Clarity moment for you.
Yeah.
Is exactly what you just said. Like, maybe me being assertive doesn't look like them being assertive.
Right. Yeah.
And I think what you just said did not sound like you were questioning whether you could be assertive.
Right.
It was questioning, am I being assertive enough compared to them?
Right. Yes. And isn't that such a struggle for a woman?
Yes. Yes, it is. Comparison is a bitch.
Yes.
But I love that you brought it back to that, because if you were in a salon all by yourself, you would probably never question how assertive you were being.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe it's more of just a thing of like, I just do it and it looks so different than the other girls. And I'm thankful that I work with girls that I consider strong stylists. And I think because of that, because I love them so much, and because they are in a lot of ways mentors to me, I naturally compare if I'm doing it good enough. But I think I just do it different. Yeah.
Okay. Girl, we just worked our way all the way around that. Like, obviously there are things you can improve and change, like the job descriptions and the, review systems, and making that
better.
You could implement that just for more so to give you feedback on how your style is being received.
Yeah.
And what would be really interesting, and I'm not like encouraging you to do it necessarily, but I think it would be really interesting to hear all of the assistants, like if you guys were to like swap assistants and get feedback on, okay, well, you, Susie, how do you prefer to be talked to? Which of the stylists here is better fit for you, right? Because there's always going to be someone who receives and works better with a certain type of personality.
100%.
It's like a work love language, right?
Yep.
But I think, so let me go back to the washing the dishes thing for a second. Do they wash the dishes when you ask them to do it?
Well, yes, they
do. Do they feel frustrated or passive aggressive, or do they give you any sort of feedback that makes you feel like, I should have been nicer, or I should have done that differently?
No, I think most of the stuff that I play is stuff that I play in my head, for sure.
And it's just you. No one else does that.
Yeah.
No one else feels that way. No one listening to this can relate to that in any shape or form.
Yes. And it's not
Isn't
about
that the
washing
real
dishes.
like struggle?
Yeah.
And not just being a woman. Like, that's in general to me. Like, it's so much worse in our head than it actually is.
100%. Yeah.
So much worse.
Yeah.
And what I want to point out to you and anyone listening right now is how you just talking it through like that, you came to your own conclusion of,
everybody needs to come sit an hour in Charli's chair.
I'm not that bad at being assertive. Like,
right. And it's okay to be different.
It's
do it
okay
in
to be
different
different.
ways.
Like, but
Yeah.
you being assertive, like, I don't know any of the other stylists' names, but like
Yeah.
whoever wouldn't be authentic for
Right.
you.
Right.
It would feel wrong for
Right.
you to say the same things the same way they do because
Yeah.
it's not you.
Right.
And I think that being authentic to who you are, it's the same thing with like, are you intimidated or am I intimidating?
Right.
Right. Like I know when I walk in a room that this is who I am.
Yeah.
Not pretending to be anyone else. And you can love it or
Yeah.
hate it,
Exactly.
but I'm not
It's
changing
not, yes, it's
who
not
I
affecting
am.
you. And I think that goes back kind of to what you were saying earlier of just like taking things from different stylists. Yes, I can do that. But I think there's been times in my career where I've tried to do things. And I think there's always ways in which you can take things and implement them and make yourself better or a better boss or whatever. But there's also been things that I've done that I'm like, no, that's not me. And so I think that if you lead with who you are always, then it's going to have a
Everything
better
will work
outcome.
out.
Yeah.
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 I say a lot too. I'm like, if this landed for you or if you take something from this, that's great. If not, leave it where it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you heard it.
Yeah.
You take what works for you.
Right.
And you leave the rest.
Yep.
And maybe none of it works for you.
Yeah.
But you get to see someone else do it. And you also in that practice, you
Yeah.
get to be a little bit more clear
Yeah.
on the fact that I like the way I do it better.
Yeah.
Because I'm choosing not to do it that way means that I like the way I do it better.
Yeah. I just realized that this podcast is actually a chance for you to show your people an actual coaching episode because that was just some breakthrough right there.
How do you feel?
I feel great. What do I owe you?
I know. I think, listen, I feel so much more comfortable in this type of dynamic than I ever feel like talking to Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever capacity that is, which is one of the reasons I really wanted to do this because I feel like hearing the conversation versus me just talking is so much more impactful. And I also think even if no one listens to this,
Yeah.
you got something out of that.
Yeah. 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
I got something out
Yeah.
of that. And I think to me, that is all I need
Yeah.
from this.
But I also think it's really cool to, and maybe half of what we said here won't be interesting at all about washing dishes and all of that, but to watch somebody kind of go through a cycle in their head and then to have a moment of breakthrough is neat to
You
watch.
just did that.
Yeah,
And
but
now you'll get to watch it.
yes, but cool because other people experience that, all the time, which is neat. Like it's cool to watch somebody experience that. And I think that's going to be cool seeing that
I think
on a
it's going
regular
to be
basis
cool for
here.
you to watch it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing and I say all the time, like how grateful I am to get to do what I do now and to have been able relatively early in life in the grand scheme of things, find my true calling for doing this because I get to witness. And here's the thing in this moment, which is so special is you get to go back and watch this. When I see clients have breakthroughs in sessions, they can't go back and watch it.
Yeah.
I am really the only observer in that moment, which is a huge honor for me. And I'm always, any client listening to this can attest to this. I will literally go time out.
Yeah.
Did you hear what you just said?
Yeah.
And I'll say it back to them or I'll acknowledge it. And it's like, we're stopping.
Yeah.
Because we have to take a minute to acknowledge what you just said and what that means because they can't go back and watch it.
Right.
And so I think it'll be really cool for you in this moment.
Yeah.
And I haven't actually I didn't really anticipate this feeling this much like a coaching session.
Yeah.
I thought it would just be like a real true, and it was a conversation, but still.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in what you think about going back and watching that.
I know. I'm excited. I think I'm going to sign up for my.
Oh, yeah. Just come on and do it on camera. I mean, you could be my live coaching client.
No, but that was cool to kind of hear myself. Sometimes you don't realize what you're thinking until you say it out loud. And that was just a neat little moment.
Well, I say two, and I actually do a whole episode, a solo episode talking about journaling.
Yeah.
And how I've really struggled with journaling, writing. I've even tried typing it. And I think that the intention behind journaling is really important and impactful, but the method in which you do it, it can kind of get lost.
Yeah.
And so if you're not a writer, like seriously, I will get like carpal tunnel in like a matter of 10 minutes. And my hand will like claw. Like I just can't do it. I'm not used to writing.
Yeah.
Typing is still kind of the same thing. It's a little bit better. But the thing that I have my clients do is video voice journal.
Oh, cool.
So we use the Marco Polo app, and I talk about this a lot. Like Marco Polo should honestly sponsor me. But they communicate with me through this video chatting app, and what it in turns like changes is like a journal entry for them. And a lot of clients, I've had them do like actual video of themselves on their phone and just put it like in a hidden folder.
Yeah.
Because you just need to talk about it.
Yeah.
You need to process it through words, taking them out of your head and into words. So sometimes I'll call it like a bitch walk. Go on a walk and bitch by yourself. Like the person you're mad at is standing right next to you, but vocalize it. Get it out of your head and into your voice and out into the world.
Always help.
But also in your relationship, like if there's a hard conversation, go for a walk and talk about it. But I think with video journaling, and I tell a lot of clients, I'm like, just put it up in your car. You don't even need to see your face.
Yeah.
And talk to yourself in your car, but record it. So if you want to go back and listen to yourself, you can almost disassociate from it being you and hear it like it's your friend.
Yeah.
And listen to her process it. And it's like you get to know yourself. If you can get past the I hate my voice or I hate the way I look on camera, that's also a really cool experiment in and of itself. It's like mirror work. Like you're getting to know yourself like other people see you. Right. And trying not to be critical of yourself in that moment, but like listening to yourself. Yeah. And what are you struggling with?
I do love that about Marco Polo is when you have conversations, you can go back and watch them. Mm-hmm. And that is like, that's sweet too, to have those real like conversations recorded.
So I've had a lot of clients where I will tell them, go back to your first Marco.
Yeah.
Or go back to your Marco 6 months ago and listen to her.
Yeah.
And because it's like, what other circumstance can you hear the tone? Can you watch your facial expressions while you're talking? Like depending on what you're talking about. And you can like hear yourself. Yeah. Like, because what you hear in your mind is so different.
Yeah.
So different because it's true. Like you have your ego versus your actual self talking. And most of the time it's your ego. And sometimes with clients, when they have like these ongoing thoughts, I'm like, whose voice is it?
Yeah.
And most of the time it's not even their voice that they're hearing say things. It's someone else in their life that they've heard say in some degree.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not even their voice. And so it's like, if you talk, you overpower that voice.
Yeah.
You say it out loud, that voice can't say anything when you're speaking.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Yay for Marco Polo.
But you sponsored by Marco. One day I'm manifesting that. I mean, that's probably not even a real thing, but
send this one to Marco Polo.
But yeah, well, I loved witnessing that, and I loved that you did that. Like you full circle came to that conclusion.
You kind of did that.
I did not do that. I say it all the time. I did not do that. I challenged you.
Yes.
But you did that.
Yes. And I'm going to start doing some video voice recordings and recordings in the car and see what comes out. But
it's very cathartic.
Yes.
But put it in a hidden folder.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't need people seeing that.
And just Google how to do a hidden folder and you'll figure it out. Well, Anna, I'm so glad that you came back on for us to have this conversation. This was really fun. Yes. And I hope that you leave here like having more clarity than you came in. So I love that. I'll put all of Anna's contact information in the show notes. Thanks for getting hyped with us today. Yay. And if, something was useful, take it with you. If not, leave it where it was. Right. We have to do our hype list.
Oh,
I got to close that without it. I typically remember a lot well, but I'm like already signing off. All right, let's do an achievement and an obstacle that you overcame.
Oh, man. Okay. Achievement, I guess back to being maybe assertive.
Okay.
Back to the topic. Let's see. What would an achievement be? I think probably or maybe let's start with the obstacle. I always want to go back to the obstacles. maybe just overcoming what I thought was a bad thing, which is my personality in the workplace, like overcoming being a people pleaser, or using it to my advantage, using it to just love on people and know that that's a good thing and not necessarily a bad thing. Man, an achievement has probably just been to get to the place in my career that I'm at with being a boss.
I want to add to that. I love that. I want to say that your achievement is TBD.
Yeah.
When you go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you go in with a different mindset of my assertive is great.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be any other way.
That's right.
And let that be your achievement. Going into it with a different mindset of I don't need to be any different than I am right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
So come back and let me know.
Yes.
How that achievement goes, the TBD.
Yeah.
I loved this.
Yes,
Thanks, Anna.
So fun. Thanks, Charli.
All right. Thanks for getting hyped with us. See you next time. Be kind to yourselves. Bye-bye. That's all, folks.